So we're going to be doing a lot of exercises, inshallah. So this one is the one, the factorial that we're going to be doing, which is just to be able to enter a number and then calculate the factorial of that number and displays it here. Another exercise we can do is this one, accumulator, which we enter a number and then as soon as we press enter, this number is going to be added to the sum. The sum starts with 0, and then as soon as we keep adding numbers, it's just going to add the sum and increase the sum, and this is something that we're going to do as well. Of course, we're not using AWT, we're going to be using Swing. Remember, AWT is like an old way of old library to display things, and the Swing is the new one. But as you can see, it's not really that different from the Swing. So this code here is that instead of J label in Swing, we use label in AWT, which is not a big difference. As you can see, it's not a big deal. But this is what we're going to be doing, okay? So we're going to be doing something like this, and maybe another variation of this to have, instead of a text field, you see this is a text field here, we could just use some kind of a label to use that. And the factorial, this is another example. The other thing, well, this thing about the applets, we're not going to be talking about them. We've done this one about count up, count down, and we've done also the calculator. Maybe one last thing that we might do is, well, I think this should be enough for today, if we have, so you can practice all these ones. So let's just start now with the factorial. What we're going to do is just to create this thing. So now help me and let me tell me exactly what we need to do in order for us to have this kind of factorial. So let's first close all, and this is going to be some kind of a review for your in-class assignment. So let's call it factorial app, because I just would like to have the factorial, like the class, to be the name to be free. So the app is where I have the main, and I'm going to create a new Java class. I call it factorial. Okay, now this factorial needs to, before it should, well, if just I want it to be a frame, I have to extend JFrame. That's the first thing that I should do. And of course we need to import the JavaX Swing JFrame. Once we do that, we just, in the constructor, set the whole things, like for example, set the size to be 150, for example. We'll see if it's okay. And then set title. So I'll say the factorial. That's and then set default close operation, and I can just put exit on close instead of jframe.exit or close. That's what we'll do. What else? Sorry? Visibility? Set visible. Well, we could use that. Okay, set visible to be true. But generally we set visible after we prepare everything. Now we just, this is the last thing that we could do, is to make it visible. But before that we need to also the layout, which is new flow layout. Is that it? Now that's it for the frame to be prepared. Now what about what's inside of it? Hold on. Well, because I was using two different operating systems, I'd just like to go back here and see if I can go back to this thing. So yes, this is what we're going to be doing. The factorial, no, it was the one before, but it's the same thing anyways. So let's just do something like this, which means we have two labels, two text fields, and one button. So let's just declare those private J label. Control space will allow me to have the import, and we call it number, for example. And then another one, copy and paste, label result or factorial. And then you know what, I'm going to just copy these two because I'll have this J text field. Copy and paste, and this is going to be TF and TF. So I have the text field number and the text field result, which is the calculation. And the last one is J button. They called it next. Let's just call it next. I don't know. And let's initialize all of these. So the last thing is just the visible is going to be breaking true, because I would like to prepare the user interface first and then I'll make it visible. Then okay, label number equal new, and then I can put n. Is that how it looks like? Yeah, n. And then we have this text field number, new J text field, and then let's just put just some kind of size. I'll put the size to be 5, for example, and then copy and paste, because now I have same thing with the label result and text field result. So here it says factorial n, so I'm going to say factorial n, and the text field looks slightly bigger, so I'm just going to make it 8. Okay. And the last thing is the button, new button, and then the text should be next with the capital N. Now the set visible is going to be done. Now if I run, of course nothing is going to show, because in the main there's nothing, so nothing is going to be happening. Now because I put the set visible inside the constructor, I don't need to put it here, which means all I need to do now is to create a new instance of the factorial. Just to do this, this is create a new object, and it's going to call the constructor. The constructor is going to call all the different methods and set visible. It's kind of small, but nothing happened. I mean, anyways, we're going to deal with that. Yes, you have a question?
We can say that it's visible in what line?
If we did not put it here.
I mean, that's if it's
Yes, I'm doing different things, because all these are possible. Okay, if you don't have this one here, you could just, for example, here in this new factorial becomes like an object. So you can add dot and then set visible. Okay, so you can do it this way, or because we did it and we had this set visible inside the constructor, so as soon as I call the constructor, it's going to be available there. Question? You said why we had that problem? Well, we did not. Well, we prepared those, we did not add them to the container or the form, the frame. So first of all, let me just make this a little bit bigger in terms of the size, the width 150, and maybe let's put 100, and then I'll decide if it's enough or not. Now all I need to do is just have this label number. Actually, I should just add the label number, and then I'm going to add 5 things. So the text field number, the label result, and then the text field result, and then the button. Notice one thing, actually it's not necessary that I start with the labels, and I can just do them in different order. It doesn't matter, because what matters is this sequence is important. But the way I initialize them, I can just scramble them the way I want. But it's better to always keep the same order, so you don't get confused and lost. So that's why it's when you do something like that, you're just less likely to do something wrong. So yes. Now if we run, inshallah, we should have something better. But it's not exactly, it doesn't look like the way it should, so probably I should just maybe increase it to 300. You set location.
The
Location of. So what is this set location doing? So it put it somewhere in the middle of the screen. So if you know your side, I mean where it is going to be. Sorry? Well, why did you choose 800?
Because I tried it.
Okay, you tried it, it works, yes. So actually, it depends actually on your resolution of your screen, but this set location will do, actually it will put this top left corner at the position that you're going to mention. For example, if I say 800 by 800 again, or maybe, no, that won't be too much, by 400, let's say. Now if I do this, that means this is going to be, I mean, instead of starting from 0, 0 here, it's going to be start for somewhere in the middle here on the screen. Okay, thank you very much. What's the difference? Well, check now, if I don't use that, if I just recommend this, look what happens. Well, okay, just look at this, this is the result. Now if I just do this and run, so what's the difference? It will be somewhere else than just the top left corner. So exactly, so the middle, because I put these numbers, and actually these numbers are roughly 800 means this is 800, and then 400 this one, so that's why it ended up here. This is the 800, 400. So the top left corner is this one over here. If I just decrease this, it's going to be now somewhere left. So but anyways, you got the idea is that, so it just goes to the left. So that's the job of the set location. But it's more convenient than having to always check it there and then move it down. Okay, and then this 300 maybe is not enough. Let's put 350 for example, and then this is going to be probably enough. Now let's have a look at this one. Notice one thing actually. These two looks like they are grayed, which means actually they're not actually the same. I mean available like the way we have them here. Oops. Let me show you what I mean. First of all, this is too much. Maybe let me put 60. So I don't have a lot of, well, maybe 60 is 75. And then what I'm going to do is that these text fields set enabled, or what is it called? Say enabled or editable to be false. Now if I set editable to be false, which means now they're not going to be able to change the values. So you see, I'm not going to be able to change anything basically, but it seems like grayed out. Now the other thing is that, just to make you see the difference, enabled. So enabled to be false means that, you see, this is like, it's not visible. I mean, it's not, I don't see the difference because I just now put this editable and then enabled, just to see the difference between enabled to be false. So look at how it looks. See how it looks like here. This one is enabled and this one is not. So that enabled is false, so which means it's some kind of grayed out. I cannot use that. So this is something I'm going to look at later, but not for now, because I just would like to make this work. So in order to make this work, I would like to, if I click on this button, what would happen is that it's just going to be taking this number and then calculate the factorial of that number. Now what I need to do that is to have an action. So I need to implement. So how do you want to do that? There are three different possibilities. I can implement, make the whole class implement the action listener, or have an inner class that will implement the action listener, or I have the anonymous class. Well, you know how to do. We did a lot with the we implement make the class implement, like what we did in the exercise with the calculator. Make the class implement the action listener, and we did also the inner classes. Let's just do these kind of anonymous classes. So we're going to be having this button implement, or not implement. We're going to add an action listener. And this action listener is going to be new action listener. So this new action listener means we're going to be creating an anonymous class, and we're defining, you see this block means we're defining something and we're overriding the action performed. And in this action performed, we just need to put the code that will do something. So what are we going to do? Well, basically we take what's in the number and we convert it to this text field number. And we need to convert it to an int, to a number, so we can calculate the factorial of that number. So I just have int the number is going to be dot get text. But the problem is this get text actually give me a text. So I need to convert this text to a number. And if I'd like to convert to int, I need to use integer dot parse int. And between parentheses, you need to supply a string, which is actually this thing over here. Now notice that these are classes. These are called wrapper classes. It's like something that is dealing with the integer, the int, the double, the float. Each one of these, they have like some kind of classes like this. This is a class data type, while this one is a primitive data type. So there is a class data type that is going to wrap around a primitive data type to help us do these kind of things. But the end result is that we have a text that is going to be converted to an int and stored in the variable called number.
Or can I do just insert an int, then add it to an int text?
Well, that's if you would like to convert an int to a string. Now we would like to do the opposite, from a string to int. So you cannot do that.
So
That's the way how to do that. Yeah, you have to use this parse int. And now we need to calculate the factorial. So let's call it result. So what's the code to calculate the factorial? I need a variable result to put the result in it. And that was a long time ago, right? Because when this is going to happen, when this code is exactly, when I click on the button, then the action should happen. Then the calculations should be done. So that's why we're doing this inside this action perform. Yes. So I need a for loop to calculate. You remember how to calculate? Okay, so imagine now, for example, the user enters 3. Now the factorial, the 3 factorial means that it's 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3. If the user put 5, inputs 5, so I need to have 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5. So I'm repeating this thing like 5 times. Yes? Well, let's just now do it without a lot of restrictions, but then later on we can try to, if it's a negative, what would happen. Now I need to have a for loop that starts from number Well, it depends. What do you would like to do? Are you starting from this, increasing until the number? Or are you going starting from this, going down up to 1? So it's just both ways. Let's start with from 1. Let's start with 1. We start from 1 until the number. And the number is included, right? And what we need to do now is result equal number multiplied by I. Number multiplied by I. Why number multiplied by I? So if the number was 3, you're going to multiply 3 by 1, 3 by 2, 3 by 3. It's result multiplied by I. But I cannot use result because it was not initialized. I need to initialize it first. Walaikum salam. If it was the sum, I would have used 0. But because it's a product, I will use 1. And this is what it is. Because it's a for loop, so it's going to be incremented. So now the result is going to be 1. I is going to be 1. Is 1 less than 3, for example? Yes, get inside. 1 multiplied by 1, that's 1. Save it into result. And then I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 3? Yes. Get inside. 1 multiplied by 2, that's 2. You save it into the result. And then I becomes 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes. 2 multiplied by 3, that's 6. And then you save it into result. And at the end, I have calculated the factorial.
If I want to do the opposite from 5.
So let's just finish this and then we'll do it another way. Just to make sure that it works, we need to display it. And if I'd like to display it, I need to display it into the text field result dot set text. And now you can use this thing that you said. I can put, for example, this result plus some kind of empty text. This is going to convert the int to a text, because if I just do this, this is not okay, because the set text is only accepting a string. So I need to convert that string to a text. I can do it this way, or there's another way. You remember the other way that involves string? No, not toString. Dot value of, and then you put whatever you want. So value of means this is an int. The value of an int is going to be converted to a string, and this string is going to be set as the text of the text field. So these are two ways. Either you add this plus and then the empty string, or this one, which is more appropriate. Yes. The toString, what do you want to? The toString doesn't work only with objects. This is a primitive data type, so it does not have toString. For example, what you would like to do is to have result dot toString, but there's no dot something, because it is an int. An int is a primitive data type. It doesn't have this kind of dot, and it doesn't have members like variables or methods. So that's why this is not okay. What this is. Now let's run this and see if it's working. Now I'm going to put like this 3 and click on next, and you see the factorial is calculated. Now this is working. Let's try to 5 next. It's 120. So this looks okay. Now what if you would like to do it in the other way around? Let's say instead of doing it this way, I just would like to have it. Oops, no, that's not what I meant. I just would like to put this into comment and then add the 4. Let's say I would like to do it backwards. So instead of starting from 1, I'm going to start from number. And then it should be until it's greater than 1. And then it should be minus minus. And the result inside is the same, basically. Result multiply equal I. I'm sorry? I greater than 0. Yes, you're right. But if I put it 1, it's okay as well, because I'm just multiplying by 1. So it doesn't change anything. But you're right, because this will be exactly identical to this thing. If this was, for example, 2 and then this was 1, then yes, they're identical. But doing it this way, it's yes. So this is going to do the same thing. Notice this star equal, right? That's the same as this. Result equal result multiplied by I. So if I run this thing again, just to make sure, let's put 3 and 5. Yes. We can add if on condition 4 for the negative. Okay, what if, for example, if someone enters -5, what is the result of -5? Well, now if it's -5, look at what happened. The number is -5. Is -5 greater than 0? Is going to be no. -5 is not greater than sorry. -5 is not greater than 0, so it's going to get out, and the result is going to be 1. So all the time it's going to be 1. So even if it's -1, what you're going to be error or something, you can do that if you want to. But for now, our code is handling the negative. Numbers. The only thing that it doesn't handle, and this is something we're going to see later, is what if somebody does this? What do you think would happen? It's an exception. And it's going to show some kind of, well, something happened, there's a problem, input, this was a number. Why? Because it's trying to actually this line is creating the problem, because we try to convert this LK whatever to an int. How can you do that? So this is something we're going to see later on with the exception handling, but this is not part of today's class. So this is how we're going to be doing something like this. But notice something, in this code, this thing doesn't seem to be working the way it is meant, because look, this seems to be like not enabled, and the next is what allows these numbers to be changed. So this is display n as shown. Click next button shall increase n by 1, and L shall begin by 1. So this is actually, this thing should be like, we start with 1, and then as soon as I click on next, it's just going to change this 1 to be incremented, and then calculate the factorial and show me the next one. So that's why what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this set editable to be false instead of enable. I prefer editable. So now it's not going to be editable, and the text field is going to be 5, but the first one is going to be 1. So I'm going to put 1. Remember that this JText field has many constructors. One of them is to take the text that's going to appear and the size. So this is the one that I'm now using. I was using only the size, now I'm using both. And same thing, what I'm going to do, for example, is something like this. Okay, so now if I run, you can see now this is not, I cannot change it, and if I click next, this is going to get this number and calculate it. But my next need to be more elaborate now, because I would like to change this to become add 1. So I'm going to increment this by 1 and then calculate the factorial. So what is how to do that is this here. So now you see I get the number, and since I got the number, I'm going to increment it. Now I incremented the number, so look what's inside of that text field, number, convert it to int, add 1 to it, and then do the math. But before doing the math and updating the text field, I can also do the same thing here. The text field number dot set text, it is going to be this number. Again, I can do this way, because I just would like to make the number to be increased, or just to use the same way with the string value of. String dot value of. So string dot value of means this is going to take this number, convert it to a text, and put it in number. So for example, we start with 1. As soon as I click on this next, 1 becomes 2, and this is going to be the calculation with 2, and this is going to give me the factorial of 2, and just put the result here. So I'm doing two things now. I'm updating two text fields. So if I click next, this becomes 2, and the factorial is 2. 2 factorial is 6. 4 factorial is 24. 5 is 120, and so on. Okay, which is more meaningful with this next. Now one last thing before doing that. What if I don't want to have it this way? I'm just going to uncomment what I just added, and I'm not incrementing and changing, so just doing it this way will become like my previous example, that where I had this button where you just put whatever number you want and it's going to calculate the result of that number. You can choose to put another number, so this is going to work differently. So the only thing that makes this work this way is these make them editable, so they are not going to be changeable. And basically this main thing here, you get the number, increment it, then put it back into this text field. What if I didn't have the button? Let's say instead of the button, this was in the number. If I press on the number, this would happen, the calculation. Well, I just need to take this thing, and instead of putting it here, I'm going to put it into the text field number. Now text field number now is the one who is going to be having this add action listener. So all this action is going to happen when this text field number is going to be having the enter key pressed on it. So now I changed it. Actually, now the button, even if it's there, it's not going to do anything. You see this button next doesn't do anything. If I put like a 5 here, it's not going to happen, but as soon as I press enter, it's going to be doing the calculation. So
I want to do both the button.
you want both of them, then you have to do the same code twice in different places. So this time it's better to implement in the whole class and then use only this and this, or you put this code into a method and then you call that method in both different places. So I just cancel, go back, and go back here. Now this is going to be like this next that we used to have. All right.